Emily,
Hello, how's it going?
thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I wish I could be up in Ely actually, but stuck down here working at the mansion.
Stuck at the
It's a
mansion.
terrible life, my life is so hard.
I was curious about that. I saw that you are the Glensheen Mansion gardener. Forgive me if that's not the formal title. I'd love to hear the title. But I saw that started in April and goes through October. So I was curious if you had begun.
It actually starts in March and goes till December, which is crazy. So there's a lot of planning in the beginning. There's obviously, I mean, you guys may have much more snow up there than we do down here. But things are just starting to melt. We're hoping for rain instead of snow with this next storm.
I am too, but my hopes might be futile.
Same. I feel that.
So we are aware that you recently completed a trek across the Boundary Waters, and that formerly you had done the Ice Age Trail in Wisconsin, a 1,200-mile expedition in 69 days with Diggins. But I would love to, hear from you a little bit of an introduction and just a little bit about you to frame our conversation.
For sure, yeah. So yeah, I'm Emily Ford. I'm 29 years old. I live in Duluth, Minnesota. And for most of the months, I'm the head gardener at Glensheen. You probably have driven past it if you drive down 61 to get out of where you guys live. It's a big house on London Road. And then I work for private homes in Duluth as well, just on my own side business. And I have two dogs. One is Zulu, which not very many of you may know about. He looks like a lab. He's a Canoe mix, actually. And then also, of course, the infamous Diggins that lots of people know about now. And she's an Alaskan Husky, which most people don't know because she's Black, and people think that all Huskies are Siberian. So, of course, there's a difference between the Alaskan and the Siberian and other Huskies. She's at home. Zulu gets to come to work with me, which that's where I am. So you guys are seeing the glorious basement of the gardener's cottage of Glensheen, which the actual house is much more eloquent than my area down. So yeah, other than that, in the summertime, I get out and hang out at Lake Superior as much as I can. I have the benefit of working right on the lake. It's like the best. I went in the water yesterday with a couple buddies, and it was awesome. Getting ready for another good long swimming season, and I don't know, just hanging out on the trail. So that's what I've been living in Duluth for 7 years. I moved up here right after college. I went to Gustavus Adolphus College, graduated in 2015, and have a geology degree that I use minutely, but the use is there. It's not all for naught.
It's not all for naught.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I have on my list of questions to ask. I myself am a Gustie as well, and I'm just so curious if your Gustavus experience has informed your love for the wilderness, or when you're in the wilderness, how do you draw upon, if you draw upon, any aspect of your Gustavus experience?
Yeah, for sure. So I didn't actually get out and like camp or anything like that until I started taking my geology courses, because for spring break, it's super cool that the professors will take you to somewhere else in the United States. So one year we went to Big Bend, Texas, and the other year I went to the Appalachian Mountains, and you get to study their field of study pretty much. So you get a different experience every year. And of course, the university or the college doesn't want to pay for a bunch of rowdy college students to hang out in a hotel together. So they have us camp out. And it was like my first time really camping multiple days at a time. So I draw upon those experiences of like, that was really the first like check of like, man, I really love doing this. I had only really slept outside one time before. It was with my buddy's family in the Boundary Waters. They had taken me canoeing for the first time. And that was like really the spark, but Gustavus did also. I loved field work when I was in college, and I knew I just loved being outside. Mm-hmm. And I know there's other Gusties in this crowd too. I think maybe Lynn Ann went to Gustavus also. I think there's a couple of Gusties in this group.
And Jeff Soderstrom as well. There are Gusties everywhere, I am finding. So
yeah.
my apologies to the audience who might not particularly care about that, but being a bust 'em.
That's right.
There's a huge leap between what you said about having spent your first night, in the Boundary Waters or going into the woods on with a college trip to spending 69 consecutive nights out in the open, outside in wintertime.
Yeah.
What happened in between those two parts
Such
of
a
your
good
life?
question. Really, what happened is I moved to Duluth. And for all of you who live in the, I think, right, all of you, they must all live in the north, right? In the Northland, at least somewhere like Minnesota up here. These are all Minnesotans, right? And
Or at least people with an affinity to the area.
yeah. And so you kind of get I moved up here on a whim with a buddy. I didn't really understand that Duluth was an outdoorsy town. I really only come here to get this was town for us growing up and for my grandparents, I didn't know. So I was like, wow, there's this cool trail, like the Superior Hiking Trail that, comes through here. And I saved up all my money to buy a backpack, and my mom got me a tent for my birthday or something. And I was through whatever I could, I borrowed stuff and I don't know, just started hiking. I really didn't know anything about it. I think I bought the guidebook for the Superior Hiking Trail, which is really, really helpful. Did that, did a 3-nighter, did a week long, and then I decided to do the Superior Hiking Trail. So I did that with the Border Route Trail all in one, and then kind of all snowballed after that.
How long of a journey is that? You said Superior Hiking Trail with the Border Route Trail. What kind of journey was that?
It took me about a month to do that trip. Yeah.
Okay.
And it was awesome. I think it was a shoulder season trip. I think I did it in from September into October.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is perfect because there's no mosquitoes.
Yes, that is perfect. So how did the Wisconsin Ice Age Trail trip come about?
Yeah, I was also on a whim, a lot of things in my life. I was out playing volleyball with a buddy of mine. We used to play bar league volleyball together. And I was like, man, I want to become a 1,000-miler. It's super cool to hike 1,000 miles or do anything for 1,000 miles, really. And she's like, hey, do you know about the Ice Age Trail and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, but I do. I was sitting on my phone and was Googling it while we were waiting for our next match to start. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do that next year. That sounds cool. I had already had a job for that winter. I get laid off for 3 months in the winter, December, January, February. And it's kind of my only time to do any big trips. And I was like, well, I guess we're going to do that. Again, saved up all my money and bought the gear I could and asked for gear that I couldn't afford and borrowed other things that I ran out of money for and couldn't get for free, and made my route. Got some folks who wanted to do resupply for me, which was a huge thing. I had originally planned 9 resupplies and used 8 of them. And I had to ask 9 friends to be you want to drive all over Wisconsin and drop off a box of stuff for me and take my gross stuff away from me and all that. Realize I have such a sweet community that surrounds me. And even though they don't do trips like this, they're willing to kind of step up to the game. And that was kind of the best part. It would be really hard to do that trip without that type of resupply. I mean, I know people have, but especially with COVID, a lot of places were shut in Wisconsin even, and it would have been kind of a bear to figure out where to ship my stuff to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's kind of for being solo trips, and this is kind of how it is for, both of my trips. Being solo is one thing, but it's kind of always a community effort to get stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. And so you recently completed a 200-mile trek across the Boundary Waters.
Yeah. A little under. I had to hop out a little early. Yeah.
But that was the Pigeon River, right?
Yeah, I was at the Pigeon. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of gnarly.
How did that trip come about?
Well, I finished the Ice Age Trail, and I don't know. I knew I wanted to do something again, but I wanted it to be more remote. A kind of a blessing and a curse of the Ice Age Trail was I saw so many people, which was awesome. Again, this whole thing of having community on these trips. But I really like to go do these adventures, for the solitude part. Of course, having a dog with me is always the best thing for me. I love having some sort of canine in my presence. And I was like, where could I go that I could do a trip like maybe like, I don't know, what's shorter? I was like, God, the Boundary Waters. That sounds great. Like the Boundary Waters in the winter. That seems doable. I knew nothing. I knew absolutely nothing about what I was getting myself into at that point. One of my mentors told me, he's like, you should go work for Paul Shirky, get some like, at least like, spend some time in cold weather. I feel like Ely never gets above -30 in the winter time. So I was like, that sounds great. I was like, hey, can I come work for you? He's like, sure, whatever. And it was it was helpful. It was eye-opening working at Wintergreen for a little bit. I was like, all right, this is the stuff I need to know about if I'm going to be living on lakes and skiing all day and hanging out with the dog all day long. Like, yeah. So I just like kind of kicked into gear, learning more and as much as I can. And a guy did it the year before me. Ty Olson actually did pretty much the same trip I did. So I was able to use his route and base my route off of his CalTopo map, and pick his brain. And I picked the brains of as many people as I could that I knew either lived in the Boundary Waters or had done winter expeditions or summer expeditions. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so much learning to do.
Well, what are some things that you learned in your time working with the Wintergreen dog sled team and being out there exposed to the elements, exposed to the temperatures and the dogs? What did you learn?
Yeah, skiing is so much work. Like hands down, like I still kind of suck at skiing. I'm not gonna lie. Like cross country skiing, I still really just suck at. I'm so slow. It is remarkable how slow I am at skiing. And it takes up so much of your energy, right? Especially if you're pulling a pulk, even though on some days, Diggins would be pulling with me. It's just still so much of your energy to pull something behind you and just ski. So learning layers, just kind of looking at like, how do you plan your day out? What is weather? Just getting attacked by weather and attacked by northern weather was really good. Having to do like minute dog chores, like even like working on dog snaps, like their collars and their harnesses when it's just cold outside is really helpful practice to like learn how to do stuff with gloves on and not taking your gloves off, which is a mistake I think a lot of people make. Yeah, and also just like the will to keep going, right? When you're out there guiding, you're kind of the cheerleader for the group, like, this is the best time of our lives. It just sucks, right? And that mentality is really helpful when you're by yourself. You kind of lie to yourself and you're like, this is the best day ever. And it's like -30 and the wind's like ripping across your face and like nothing's going right for the day. So kind of a bunch of different things.
So that leads me to two different trains of thought. And one is just the phrase attacked by weather is now something I'm going to use all the time.
Yes,
I feel very attacked by the weather often, so I'll be sure to quote you on that.
Use it.
But you talked about will. And when I was kind of researching your expeditions and learning about the documentary and everything, which we'll circle back to, I just am so curious, when you have to dig really deep for a resilience mindset, what do you grab onto? What do you find when you're digging for resilience? Like, how do you get through the hardships?
Anything. I grab onto literally anything. Anything that seems positive, I just like hold it and I just focus on it. Like I like I would just practice gratitude, which is so like, man, well, like what a 2020 buzzword, like practice gratitude, right? Oh man. But like, honestly, I would be thankful for any freaking thing that came my way. I'd be thankful for good snow. I'd be thankful for the wind because it made the snow better, even though it hurt my face. I would be thankful for a portage that like, maybe it wasn't even tracked out by a human or like by a dog sled, but like even by a wolf pack. If a wolf pack had packed down a trail, I'd be like, oh, you're the best wolf pack in the whole entire Boundary Waters. I'd be thankful for like, I made a new way of like making quesadillas, which was also something I learned at Wintergreen, is like just fun ways to make trail food exciting. I would put cinnamon sugar on the outside of my quesadillas and like they were delicious. I was thankful for my hot chocolate. I was thankful for anything that was possible, because the moment that you start to hate things is the moment that you are ready to like tell yourself that you suck and like that you should get out of there. And I had those moments of like, I'm not gonna make it through this. Like, I didn't do enough work for this. Like, I'm not ready for something like this. And then just no, like I trained for this. I know I know enough of what I'm doing. Like don't let yourself get down. And having a dog with is helpful. I would pretty much talk to myself through her. Like I would have her give me encouragement, but it was just me talking to myself. It just makes it less insane sounding, I guess. And be like, we can get through this. And kind of I got to a point on the trip where if I knew we had a bunch of portages in the day, because a lot of these portages weren't tracked out, which meant that I had to do the portage pretty much three times. I would go out by myself, track it with my skis at a normal ski width, and then track it back with a wider ski width, and then pull everything through with a wider ski width, because my sled, of which I named Togo, was a pain in my butt. Like it just did not want to go through it all. And so if I knew I had a bunch of portages, I would just turn things into projects, like school projects, right? And be like, oh, we're just tackling this project right now. And like, if we get past our miles, it's extra credit. Like it was like talking to myself like a child, like we're just breaking today down in projects. And we finished that project. We just had 2 more projects to go. Like anything to get my brain on board.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to see some of these questions that came in through the chat?
Yeah, I can.
It looks like someone's asked, how did you and your pup train for the expedition? And was it difficult to consume enough calories?
Yeah.
What'd you eat?
Such good questions. So the biggest thing is just making sure that she was ready to run. I skied as much as I could, again, not being a very proficient skier. I have a buddy in town who's a great skier, and I had her take me out multiple times and just teach me better skills for skiing, and I would just do that all the time. I wish I would have pulled tires and like done more pulling. I didn't do that, and I really wish I would have. It would have helped me just build my stamina a lot faster. And then with Diggins, I run her, I bike jor with her as much as I can just to keep up her fitness. But she's such a fit girl. Like it's unreal how fit she is. She's pretty young yet. She just turned 4. And then when winter came around, we would ski jor together and just make sure that she could get her running in and get her pulling in. It was pretty much, I would just stand there and I would just have her pull me just to keep her fitness up. And consuming enough calories, I mean, you can always eat more, I feel like. For breakfast, I found a co-guide of mine told me about Green Belly. They make these breakfast bars. They're like 650 to 700 calories, and kind of like they're really light too. They're like only this big. They're super light, easy to pack away. So I would have that for like the beginning breakfast. A couple hours later, like eat more snacks. I would eat ramen. I'd make ramen every morning, like stash it in my stuff, and it was like nice having something hot during the daytime. Meat sticks, cheese sticks, M&Ms, chocolate. I love candy, so like I love these trips. You can just like eat a whole bunch of candy. Granola bars, like the whole assortment. Eat that pretty much throughout the whole day, and then at night, hot chocolate. I had lard with me, which was really helpful, and then a Mountain House meal, and sometimes a quesadilla as well. Diggins eats. I'm forgetting the name of her dog food for trips. Oh, it's a high performance. A lot of mushers use it. I can't remember the name of it, but if it comes back to me, it's a kibble. She eats a kibble, but I can't remember the name of it. Dang. And then she pretty much gets twice as much food on the trail as she does at home. So it's pretty much like almost like 4 cups a meal. How much was that? Is it like 2.5 cups like per meal? Something like that. It's crazy. She ate so much food. So yeah, but you can always eat more.
Let's circle back to these quesadillas with the cinnamon sugar.
Yeah.
Can you paint us more of a picture?
I would love to. Here you are with your little stove, little pan. So what I do is I put lard in the pan first and put the tortilla in one side, make sure that gets covered with lard, flip it over to have the inside covered with lard. The side that you already covered with melted lard, you sprinkle cinnamon sugar on it, flip it back over, put the cheese inside, and you can always dress up with Pringles. I brought so many Pringles with me. I ate 1 can of Pringles every single day. So I sprinkle Pringles in there too for like a little crunch. Get the outside lightly. You can't have it too hot because or else your your sugar will start to burn. Start melting your cheese. Once your cheese is melted, fold that bad boy in half and finish crusting the outside to make it like caramelized. It is so good. It's like salty and sweet together. It's like a game changer on on quesadillas.
I'm sensing a new business model. I think that you could go in with your coworker that taught you about the cinnamon sugar and get a little food booth or something like that.
I told him, I told
that.
Patrick, I was like, Patrick, when we ended up guiding together for like the first 2 weeks flat. I don't know why Paul stuck us together, but it was awesome. And we just like came up with these crazy creations to keep our clients happy. Like we made some, like we just ended up making like dessert quesadillas with like marshmallows and Snickers. It was really good with like the crusted outside. It was amazing. So anything is possible out in the wilderness. There's a lot of time to be creative, a lot of time to think.
You'll have to make sure that Paul puts that on the Wintergreen website about the food offerings and the unique culinary experience. So it's available.
He'll be booked for the rest of his life. That's right. It's gonna turn from dog sled focus to just the culinary experience focus.
I am curious if there are people who've influenced you on your journey as a wilderness explorer.
Yeah, not really in the beginning because I didn't realize that it was a thing. Because I've always liked being outside so much. I don't know. I didn't realize like it was a big deal, I guess. And then I started learning more about Matthew Henson, and he could be considered the first dude at the North Pole. Debatable, but he's an African-American guy, some Black dude, and his story is like always so riveting to me because this is like the early 1900s, late 1800s. Hey, those expeditions, those people are crazy, but I mean, we get to where we are because of where people have been. So gotta kind of tackle those hard things, right? Not that going to the North Pole is easy now. I don't want to say that, but it's just different. And just like Henson, he, for the times it was like, he just powered through like all these like, racism aspects that, we still face, but that was crazy back then. He just learned all these skills to be useful on these ships and like to be asked to go on these trips and like to be the best right hand man that he could have been on these trips. So I love that about him, and that's kind of why I loved going and working at Wintergreen too, because like, and just all these different jobs I had, like working at Glensheen, and like I was a window washer one winter, like that being a window washer in the winter like builds your stamina for winter. And it's like if you have all these different skills and aspects, you're way more attractive to people, and then you can build up this resume and go on these trips that you want to go on. I mean, that's exactly what he did. So I read up on him as much as I could, of course. There's only so much information. And then even more so, Anne Bancroft and Liv Arnson, of course, skiing across Antarctica. And they did that in the 80s, I think, 80s or 90s. And of course, they're just like crushing this glass ceiling of just like women in expeditions, right? And, Anne, she's a sweetheart, but like her passion for teaching others and like bringing kids into the mix, like that is so important to me. And like, I admire how she's done that, right? Because any of us could be expeditioners. Any of us could go on trips. Nowadays you can pretty much pay your way to the North or South Pole or wherever. But if you're doing the work and if you want to bring people along with you, that's like how you that's how you change the whole world. That's how you, that's how you bring others with you and encourage others. And that's like, one of my heart goals too. And another thing too, like even with the Boundary Waters, if we're all just like expeditioning and you don't tell anybody, it's hard to explain why these spaces are important, right? It's hard to explain like, why do we need the Boundary Waters? Why is that a space that like, why do people like going there? It's hard to know that until you experience it, right? Why do we love dog sledding? Why do we love ice fishing? Like, why do we love, who needs the North Pole and the South Pole? And like you get in all these like, of course, political debates, but like, it doesn't, you take the politics out of it and it's like you and yourself in the wilderness, like that's the important part. So just like looking at both of them, I'm like, man, you two, like you are the coolest people. And like, I wanna be you when I get older. It's so cool.
Well, you are well on your way.
Thanks.
Did you say the phrase heart goals?
Heart goals, maybe
Yeah. Well,
goals.
you have an advocacy aspect to what you've been doing. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Like, so since this is like the thing, I've always loved being outside. And like I was saying, like I didn't know this was a big deal, especially with like last year's trip on the Ice Age Trail. When people started following my Instagram, I'm like, this is a weird thing that you're following my life, but welcome to the group. Um, and it like really hit me after, like especially after George Floyd's murder. I'm like, okay, how do I get out and be helpful in like their social justice and racial justice movement? I'm not one to go protest. Like I'm not one to like really like picket and be loud and all this stuff. And I admire people who are like, that's amazing. I'm a lot quieter, and I'm like, how can I at least show that I stand for equality, for all these different boxes that I check? And it's just like going out and doing it. And of course, like what Anne does, bringing people with you as much as you can virtually, since I am a solo person, virtually is kind of the way that I do it. And so my goal is just like showing people of color, like the outdoors isn't scary, and showing all people, but especially people of color, that winter's not scary. And winter is a beautiful season that is so underutilized. And people just sit and grumble and hate, you know, and like for little kids, for little, like, especially like little kids who identify as like girls, and adults who identify as female, like just like the outdoors is for everybody, no matter your shape, size, or ability. you know, the outdoors is like the great equalizer. People are like, oh, I could never do what you do. I'm like, well, I bet you could, because I get very cold. And I bet you're just afraid of being cold. And the cold is cold. We all feel it, to varying degrees. And there's equipment for that. Yeah.
Yeah, the gear is essential.
Yes.
Did you have any? I was going to ask if you had any favorite pieces of gear, but I'm not trying to turn it into an advertisement for anything. But was there something that was indispensable, or something you've learned about gear that you think would be helpful to share?
Yeah, man. A couple new things. I had these ripping ski boots this year by Baffin, and they are not necessary in any other instance except for like polar exploring or like really cold weather trips. Like extremely cold weather trips. My feet sweat so much of them, but they were huge. They were super helpful. And they're made for 3-pin bindings. Again, my skis were awesome, really floaty. Like I didn't know what kind of skis to take. And like we would sit around the table at Wintergreen and like conjecture like what kind of skis I should take and what I should do and what have you. I love those. And having a good shelter that you can sleep in. If you're a person that not everybody sleeps in a tent. Some people just sleep out on the ice, and like some people just sleep on a tarpon or whatever. If you're a tent person though, is having a good shelter, man, is awesome. And Hillberg hopped on this trip with me, and their tents are awesome. We had some ripping winds, and that tent was just like never moving. It's like, haha, come at me, Boundary Waters. And I was like, don't tempt it. You're awesome. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You mentioned community, and you talked maybe more specifically about the Ice Age Trail trip that you did and the resupply. But I noticed there were stories of young kids coming out and meeting you out there. On this most recent trip, you found a angler who gave you a trout.
Yeah, he was awesome. He was awesome. Yeah, that's kind of the thing, right? Like, who are you going to meet out in the Boundary Waters in the wintertime? It's not very many people, but when you do meet people, at least this is what I found, they're either curious as to why you're out there or just excited to see you out there. They're like, cool, like, what are you doing? And for the Ice Age Trail, like people would hike for days, come back and out, like just to find me, to say hi, and like bring me some warm food, and like bring Diggins some snacks. And it's crazy. And I didn't know if I was going to meet anybody in the Boundary Waters. And it felt like I met the right people like just at the right moment, because like these people would just have the right information for the next section of the boundary waters, right? There's been people who, of course, they're out in the boundary waters in the winter time, but the information that you need for the current winter may be different than past winters. So I met a bunch of mushers. One musher I met one night, and I was telling him about my resupply coming up for a group or from a group. And I was like, it seems like it might be a little difficult for them because their dogs need a skier ahead. And he's like, oh, I'll talk to them. I'm going there anyway. So I'll see you in a couple of days. I'll bring out your stuff. And I was like, okay. And like, I didn't know if this was happening, and I was like messaging this other group. I was like, hey, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh no, this guy's going to bring out your stuff. I was like, no way. He actually contacted you. Like he brought all my stuff out. I got to meet his dogs. And he helped me with a new setup to help Diggins help pull the sled. So she was helping me pull the sled, but I would ski out front. Her paws got dunked a few too many times for her to trust walking on any unbroken snow. So she would just she's having a hard time. And then, my other resuppliers from Minojan, so they came out, and then they spent the next like 2 hours breaking trail in front of me, which was like a huge gift. Like I was like, man, you guys don't have to stay here. And they're like, oh no, we're gonna get you to your next lake. And I was like, okay, this is awesome. And then the guy, I think his name is Kevin. He was fishing, and I was like, poking around with him, and I was eating my lunch, and his tip up went off, and I realized I was like, man, I'm taking up too much of your mind space. He lost the fish on the tip up. So like, I'll see you later, like have a good one. Thanks, great chat. I'm skiing away, and I hear somebody yelling at me. He's like, hey, I caught a fish. Do you want some dinner? And I was like, sure. And he's like, here's a fish. Just like that was, we just like walked away from each other.
What a beautiful thing.
It was awesome. It was so tasty. It was like fresh food was awesome. Oh yeah, and I met another musher out, and this was like the biggest game changer. This was Sean. Diggins and I were just like slogging through. It was just a rough day. There was slush everywhere. And he comes up from behind, and he's like, where are you going to? And I was like, oh, near Dorothy Malters. And he's like, well, I'm skiing right there, or I'm sledding right there. He's like, I'll just break the trail for you the whole way through. And I was like, this is awesome. This is the best. I threw Diggins in the front, and she's like, this is go time. Like on a trail, like she flies on a trail. We skied like 12 miles, which was, we had been skiing like 4 miles, maybe 6 miles a day. And we just like, that was the biggest mindset game changer. I was like, we can do anything. This is awesome. And like, he came back and he's like, all right, well, I broke it as far as I could, but it's in slush. He's like, do you want an orange? And I was like, yes, yes, I do. And it was like the best. I like savored this orange in my tent that night. I was like, oh, the precious orange. It was awesome.
Precious orange, precious trout.
I know.
We had a question come through the chat wondering if Diggins got to have any trout.
She did. Yes. She was happy with the trout. She didn't want it raw though. I had to cook it for her. She didn't want to have the raw trout, which I was super bummed about. So I had to cook it in my pan for her. We smelled like fish for many, many days after. It was worth it. Yeah.
Do you prefer Boundary Waters trout or Boundary Waters walleye?
Oh, I don't know. I've never had Boundary Waters walleye before. Wait, have I? Only off when I was at the Gunflint Lodge, they had fish. I don't know if it was walleye though, whatever I had. I don't remember because I just sucked it down like Scooby-Doo. Anything, I think anything would have been great.
Well, you'll have that on your bucket list, some fresh Boundary Waters walleye. Yeah.
Yes, I will.
You talked about your sled setup, and I read that for a while you swapped so that you were in front, then Diggins, then the sled. And I was about to ask, but you said that was an innovation from your pal.
New pal, yeah. He was awesome. Yes, because he had been mushing, and he had seen me a couple of days before, and I told him what issues I had. And he's like, no, we can get your dog to pull more. He's like, she should be able to pull the sled. And it worked out. It was awesome. David, that was David. Yeah.
What a miracle. These people come into your life at the exact right time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really helpful for like, it's really helpful for a person who's living in the world we're living in right now, where it's really easy to be just skeptical of literally everybody that crosses your path. Um, it like reaffirmed a lot of like grace I have for humanity when people just like actually want to see you accomplish like your dreams and goals, and like they want to help you, move forward. Like I still think it's funny that Paul even hired me at Wintergreen. So I was like, I can only be there for like a few weeks. He's like, come on out. And I'm like, I'm gonna have to leave, and like there's just little things like that. And even like my mentor, like helping me like walk through those things, and and people at like Friends of the Boundary Waters being like, we wanna help and support this trip of yours. I'm like, how is this even possible? And it like this whole thing just like reaffirmed like people do want to see you succeed. Not everybody's out there trying to kick you down. There are people trying to kick you down, but not everybody.
There's more trouts and oranges than those people.
There's more trouts and oranges than yes. That's right. I just want a shirt that just has one trout and one orange on it and just leave it at that.
I love that. I think that's a great visual and symbol for the goodness that you're talking about.
Yes. And like some lead line, like some dog sled lead line on there, like some little claps. That'd be awesome. If anybody's a designer out there, hit me up.
There was a documentary film created, and it's my understanding there may be another one forthcoming about your Boundary Waters journey. I'm not clear on that. Do you want to talk a little bit about Breaking Trail and future related projects?
For sure. Yeah, speaking of meeting people at the right moment, that's a project with Jesse Roesler and Creative Nonfiction. He messaged me at like mile 500 on the Ice Age Trail, and we ended up saying yes and collaborating on this. And so his story, or our story on that, is just Diggins and my relationship on the Ice Age Trail, completing that trail, bringing everybody together, talking about equity in the outdoors, and some other really cool people are featured in that film. Oh man, they're just like such a delight to my heart. So that's a 30-minute film, and yeah, we got to go to Banff. We get to go to Telluride. There's all these like really cool places this film is showing. Hopefully this summer, I think confirmed this summer, it should be on some major network that people should be able to watch it if you're interested and have not been able to watch it yet. And this film is going to be, I think, just a 15-minute little ditty, talking about the Boundary Waters, why it's such an important place, and just like my time out there, what that looked like, and again, just like equity in the outdoors, encouraging people to get outside and experience the wilderness. So Jesse came out twice in the Boundary Waters and slept overnight both times, and he's such a trooper, because he didn't have the best gear, but he made it through the night both times, and I'm super proud of him. So yeah, both films. Yeah.
I will give a quick plug. I reached out to Credo Nonfiction. It sounds like the film Breaking Trail is showing through the Cleveland Film Festival, and I went this morning and purchased my screening pass. Anyone listening can do the same. I'll send a link out via the next Tuesday group newsletter. It's $12 with the processing fee to be able to watch it anytime between April 10th and April 17th. So there is a way for people to see it before the summer if they want to. Let me circle back to something you said and ask, why do you think the Boundary Waters is an important place?
Oh man, it's so cool. So I've traveled a lot of places, not like a lot, but enough places. And I always resonate and like come back to Minnesota. And just like the Midwest in general, it's so underrated. And you realize that how spectacular of a place the Boundary Waters / the Quetico, right? Because we kind of share land with, we do share land with Canada up there. But even if you hear people's personal stories of being in the Boundary Waters, you can tell it's important to us as humans. It's a place where you can reset. It's a place where you can go venture. And it's a place where like our normal hustle and bustle of the world doesn't quite exist, right? Especially in the winter. I mean, when I was out there, I didn't even hear a wolf. I didn't hear a single wolf. I didn't hear a single coyote. I didn't hear a single animal besides 2 crows that followed us for several days, which is super a bummer to me. I really wanted that. But there's like this wild open space where seemingly not seen by my eyes, all these creatures live, all these animals live. And it's like this untouched, quote unquote space. And then when you hop back into the real world, of course, quote unquote, you realize that's super uncommon. It's not like those places just pop up and you can't just like make a space like that. You have to leave a space to be for that to happen. You can't just like muck around all in it, I don't even know. I've been asked this question so many times. I like still don't have a good answer to articulate like how like in my heart I feel about the boundary waters, and this doesn't mean like I love that people use it for like guiding. I love that people use it for like fishing and like all these trips. Like I think it's a space where you can finally tap into how humans are supposed to be. All of us, we're kind of trapped to our jobs a little bit. I guess unless you guide out there. It's a remarkable space.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes quick. As soon as you start mucking around with it, it will go away real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is really difficult to articulate, but I think you did a fabulous job.
Thanks.
I am wondering if we can maybe just give the in-person audience a moment to share their questions with the representative in the room over there. So although it might feel a little strange, we'll just be quiet for a moment so that he can hear and transcribe their questions into the chat if they have any.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I'll attack the career and expedition goals. Man, such a good question. I don't know. This next winter, I think I'm going to try to take it off as much as I can and hang out around in Duluth, maybe pop back up to Ely. Because I really loved being in Ely. But future goals, I love my job at Glensheen. I love being a gardener. It's like the other half of my heart is really in love with gardening. So for the foreseeable future, I'll just have the 3 months off in the winter. I do want to hike. I do want to go back to backpacking a little bit and hike like the Appalachian, the Pacific Crest, or the Continental Divide. And other than that, I would love, as far as like winter expedition goes, I like would love to ski across Greenland. It's a big goal, but it has to do with my desire to like continue to follow in Matthew Henson's footsteps. He has a legacy in Greenland, and I would love to ski across it. Ski Jor, actually, that'd be super. That's like high up on my list. Going to the poles would be awesome. They're not super high up on my list, but they're definitely up there. And any like Arctic trip sounds phenomenal to me. So that's kind of that. But for now, I'm just gonna be in Duluth with me and my dogs. If you need us, this is where we'll be.
And work in the soil, yeah.
Work in the soil. Diggins, she's such a cuddle monster. She won't admit it to you though. If you ever get a chance to meet her, we slept together. This year, what I did differently is I used my sleeping bag for myself. And I bounced back and forth with a bunch of different, I don't know if Lynn is still here, but she helped me bounce back and forth with different ideas for what to sleep in. And so I used my sleeping bag, which is a 0 bag, and then a 0-degree quilt over the top of that. And so Diggins would sleep under the quilt. It was double quilt by Enlightened Equipment, also another great company. And she loved that. So we sleep together. I didn't swim in Lake Superior this morning. That was yesterday morning. I was in a sports bra and shorts. It was awesome. I love Lake Superior so much. It's unreal. I will probably never move away from it because I love it so much. How do I protect my feet and my face? Oh, so great question. So I kind of goofed around with the whole boots situation. Those boots that I had, they're the Guide Pro 2s by Baffin. They are extremely warm. The difficulty is that they're almost too warm when the temperatures get around like 0. It's much better if the temperature is like 15 below and below. as soon as you get into the minus 10s and zeros and aboves, they're kind of warm. So I sweat a lot in my boots. I tried doing a vapor barrier. That was kind of a bust. So I just ended up sweating and rotating my socks out. In the morning, I would sit on top of my boots to thaw them out because they would usually freeze overnight. The nice thing about the Bath and the Guide Pro is that you can take the liner out, and I could have slept with those in my sleeping bag. I just was too lazy to do so. For my face, I mean, balaclavas and buffs everywhere. And I have glacier goggles. They kind of look a little steampunky. I think I have a couple pictures on my social media, but they cover everything and the sides of your face. So I had a really cool tan line with my glasses. I look like a reverse raccoon, or just a raccoon. I can't remember which way raccoons are. Who smelled? I did. I smelled so bad. The question is, who smelled worse at the end of the journey? I did. I didn't even. I have never smelled so bad in my entire life because I just wore the same outfit every single day. Maybe this is too much information. I brought like 2 pairs of underwear for 1 week and just make that work. And I just smelled so bad. Oh my gosh, you guys have no idea. And all you're eating is junk food, so your body just can't even pull from any good smells. Any pictures of my dogs where we can see pictures or videos of my journey? Yes, I will hopefully do a better job at this. If you're not on Instagram or on social media, I understand it's difficult to see things about my trip. You could follow along if you go to emilyontrail.com. Yes, I have a blog, and there are a few photos up there, and I will try to do better at getting videos up on there. emilyontrail.com. Do I enjoy my time guiding? Would you consider that as a career? Do you prefer solo trips? Guiding, I'm not the best with people. So I would maybe. I don't think I would guide professionally. I love my solo trips. And of course, I'll bring buddies out, if they wanted to go somewhere. I love bringing new people out, but I don't know if I'd want to make a career out of it. It's a tough life being a guide, but guides who are professional guides, they love it. Mm-hmm. What did I use for gloves? Oh, my mitten system was on point. You guys, I brought so many mittens and gloves with me, you have no clue. I need mittens. My fingers, I blame my grandfather for this. He would have me go out ice fishing when I was really little. And we would just, this is the 90s, so everything's cotton or really heavy wool back then. And I would be freezing and he didn't care. And we would just sit on the ice. So my fingers and my toes are really sensitive. So I use mittens. I would ski in my Hestra mittens. So they have a wool liner that can be removed, and then they're a leather out glove. On really cold days, I do that. They block the wind. On warmer days, I'd use my Manzana gloves. They're thinner and they have a fleece. They're fleece on the inside and the liner you can't take out. They block the wind pretty well, but they're a thin glove. If it was warmer than that, I would use, I have smart wool like liner gloves that I would ski in. And then if it was just like a warm sunny day, I would ski just barehanded. Yeah, that was one of the things. I brought along a shell glove. They're really thin. They're just like a shell glove. I didn't really find favor in using that, but I was glad I had it along anyway. My last pair of mittens that Anne Bancroft gave to me was to wipe off the snow on the inside of my tent in the morning from our moisture. You wake up and your whole ceiling is pretty much just frost. You have to get it off there somehow. So lots of mittens came with me on this trip. My sled, how much did my sled weigh? How much weight was I pulling? Were we pulling? My sled was 150 pounds. So I was pulling 150 pounds. Did you have to boil all your water or filter? I had to boil everything. I just boiled snow, which just takes a long time. So I brought a lot of fuel with. One of the reasons why my sled was so heavy is because I brought a lot of fuel. And I probably brought more fuel than I needed to, but sometimes your creature comforts are worth the weight. WIGHT.
Yeah.
Great questions. You guys have awesome questions. Thank you.
We're kind of coming up on the time, but I would like to ask, you referenced Ely being a community that you really enjoyed being a part of. And I'm just curious if there's anything about Ely that stood out to you as a special place.
I met some great people up in Ely. You know, when I was up there, I didn't. You don't really leave Wintergreen all too often when you work there. I think I just enjoyed being a part of that staff so much. Um, I don't like that your grocery store closes literally at 4 in the afternoon, though. I come on, man, Zups, come on, Zups. I know it's 7, and I know it's like 7 at night, but still, man, if I'm done guiding at 6:30, I can't make it there in time. Um, yeah, it was really fun. It seems like a place where if you find the right people, they're pretty like-minded about winter, and I really appreciate that. Sometimes that's hard to find in Duluth. A lot of people live up here and just complain about the winter. I'm sure lots of
Mm,
people complain about winter in Ely, but it's a little bit easier to find others who love the winter as well.
mhm. Awesome. Well, I
Yeah,
so appreciate your time and learning about your expeditions and hearing what you have to say. Thank you so much. Oh, we have one more question come through. I think if you have a moment,
sure. Yeah,
I can hear them. He'll
that's
type it
awesome.
soon.
Yeah, thanks for asking questions about like, thanks for, this was like, man, this was way more fun than me doing a presentation. Um, this is way more fun. So thank you for asking such good questions to all of you.
We've got a good crowd up here.
Uh, the Grand Portage. So what happened at the end was such a bummer. So I'll just lay out the end. There, I got to the Pigeon River and was told to take the portage on the Canadian side, which is a bear of a portage. It may have been the hardest portage the entire trip. The hope was that I could get far enough away from the dam where the water would have been frozen over again. And I got to there and the water was cracked wide open. When I got back home, Ty had shown me his video. He ran to the same thing, but he found a different way around it, I guess. I think he took a road. I don't know if he drug his sled on the road or what he did. Um, but even he has a bit of a shelf that he could have maybe skied on in his video. For me, it was cracked wide open. So I ended up ending right a couple miles south, or not south, that'd be east of the Pigeon River Dam. And I got a ride out of there's a snowmobile trail that connects there to South Fowl. So I've yet to do the Grand Portage via ski, which kind of a bummer, but it ended how it needed to end. I still skied across the whole Boundary Waters, which was good enough for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, congratulations on that major achievement.
thank you so much.
And in the process, you raised money for children to go into the wilderness, correct?
Yeah, yeah, folks like super hopped on, like at least $4,000. I know some people still have been donating to Friends with Boundary Waters. They have like a little link on their website where like I think it's like fundraiser like for Emily Ford or something. But all that money goes to like all these little kids getting into the. That's so crazy to me, man. Like, oh, people stepped up, and I was like, dang, man. I'll keep doing all these trips if like other people get supported. I'm totally into that.
We'll raise funds by selling our trout and orange t-shirts.
That's right. That's right. Oh, we're gonna be millionaires, all of us. We'll all split it together.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. You have a great day.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.